Hello and welcome to my podcast on radical self-love, an Ayurvedic perspective on healing body and mind. My name is Sandra Hayes and I'm a Vedic practitioner, meaning I utilize Ayurveda, yoga and Vedic astrology as well as transformational creativity to help you become a conscious creator of your own life, health and well-being. For more information and for access to my online learning platform, The Little School of Happiness, please go to www.sandrahayes.eu. So we did talk about the Ayurvedic perspective of the life cycles, in particular the childhood phase in the last episode. And today I would like to go a little bit further in that subject. So we can pretty much view all of life as a long digestive process of the soul. During childhood, the kapha phase, we take in nutrients, both on a physical and on a mental level, and we grow through them. We are still very attached to our parents, our caretakers, our community, and we are full of love and compassion, as long as that's, of course, not disturbed too much by any outer influences, which, of course, can happen sometimes. But we are really, really close to our true human nature. And that's why I always believe very strongly that children can teach us a lot. That if we can learn to see children differently, then we would really gain a lot for that. They're much, much wiser than we give them credit for. And yeah, of course, they're innocent and they're inexperienced in what life in our established societies is concerned. And we have to teach them and we have to guide them through that to make them able for it. But in their own way, they constantly somehow remind us to what our human nature actually is. And I've seen this so often. I have taught children. I've worked in children's theater. I've done yoga for children. I had my own children, stepchildren, foster children. I worked in kindergartens, in preschool, in after school settings. I've worked with children a lot, and I really know that they can teach us the importance of life, the importance of creativity, the importance of love, of playfulness, of compassion. They can teach us about the simplicity of life. And it's funny because a child usually is never aware of, the things that we as adults tend to judge. It's not aware whether it is rich or poor, and it couldn't care less if the family car is just some kind of a rusty heap of metal, as long as it gets you from one place to the other, and they usually trust in the adult driving it enough. They don't worry. And a child doesn't care about, racial issues or politics or religion. But at the same time, it has deep, deep questions and thoughts and opinions, amazing opinions often about life and the universe that are rooted in their hearts, because they still are so connected to their hearts. They live from the hearts, and that is they're pure sattvic beings, and that's why we can really learn a lot from children. But then, of course, what happens? Then puberty hits and hormonal activity and pitta rises, and the fire of transformation burns their old skin to ashes, and then they emerge, more or less dramatically, like a phoenix from these ashes, or maybe like a butterfly. And then they turn into adults, and Rajas takes over. That's the Rajasic phase of life. And the Rajasic mind, we've talked about this before in other episodes, it's a really restless mind. It wants things, always wants something. It develops one desire after another. And of course, puberty itself, it's hard because, it's like turning into a butterfly. That means that our caterpillar self first has to completely, break down, dissolve into mush, into nothing. The identities have to break down before then we can be reborn as a new identity and spread our wings in this society and fly and, become, these individual beings. And then when we fly the nest, we are really restless. And that restless phase, that pitta phase, that actually lasts for, the biggest part of our lives. It lasts until menopause. And until then, no matter what our prakriti is, whether we are vata, pitta, or kapha, pitta is always higher than in the other phases of life. We're always a little bit governed by pitta. And pitta, as we know, is mostly fire, and fire burns. It radiates light and heat, and it transforms things from one chemical state into another. As adults, we transform things as well. We actually transform the whole world. The world, a few generations ago, the world looked completely different than what it does now. And, in a few generations, it will again look completely different. And that's because of the pitta dominant adults that are running it, really, that are organizing our society. And it is run by pitta individuals usually as well, because pitta likes to lead, and it likes to know things, and it likes to be right. And, a balanced pitta often is right as well, but a balanced pitta inspires. It doesn't teach or preach, it inspires. And that is the biggest problem in the world, really, that it is ruled by out of balance individuals. And because, most of us really, let's face it, are in some way out of balance. None of us is completely in balance, because then we wouldn't really be here anymore. But pitta, when it is in balance, pitta people are really great leaders. They're very intelligent. They're inspiring people. But when they're even a little bit out of balance, and that's, like I said, it's almost everyone, then one of the downsides, they really don't have the greatest ability to see to see the world through somebody else's eyes. They believe that their own truth is the truth, and they believe so strongly often in that they just cannot accept that the world can be experienced in different ways, and that is a problem. And for example, the past couple of years, they were really interesting in that way, because we could see clearly, from an Ayurvedic perspective, if we look at the world from an Ayurvedic perspective, we can see clearly the pitta, kapha, and vata types during lockdown, because, everybody reacted to some extent with fear. Consciously or unconsciously, fear was rising up in all of us, I think, pretty much. But everyone reacts differently to it, and everyone fears something different. And so you could see Vata people, for example, with their inherent need for freedom, to be free, to move around freely, to breathe freely. They really feared the restrictions and the masks in front of their mouths and noses much more than the disease itself, because it restricts their inner need to feel free. And that is much worse for them in some cases than the thought of dying from a disease. And then pitta, they have a need for order and control and everything to be in a certain way for them to feel secure. And nothing is in order anymore, of course, and nothing is in control. And then they really started to fear that, and also feared the uncontrollable Vata types, more than anything sometimes. And they were also the ones who took all the research, and they knew all the statistics and the latest discovery. But, their fear was then as well, their mind just tends to grasp onto organized, clear things that can be analyzed and organized. And if that's not the case and they cannot control that, then their fear rises up. And they're expressing fear more also in anger, where, Vata type can express their fear and anxiety more, or sometimes paranoia as well. And, imagining things that aren't there is possible for a Vata type in fear, of course. And then the Kapha types, well, they just stayed home and watched movies. Of course, they also have their fears, but their fears would be more about others, how, the well-being of their family, for example, their children. and they didn't cope maybe with the loneliness so well, and maybe they are more likely to get depressed than from that. So you have all these reactions, and all of these reactions are, understandable. They're completely understandable because they're coming from individual perspectives, individual experiences of the world, individual prakriti. And so, yes, I think looking, at the world through the eyes of Ayurveda is really helpful in understanding our differences a little bit better. It's also interesting to look at the human races, for example, through the eyes of Ayurveda, because just from a purely genetic point of view, Black people, Ayurvedically genetic, Black people, for example, they're genetic Vata types. Their natural water content is slightly lower. They have drier hair, they have drier skin. They can take a lot of sun through their darker melanin-rich skin. And if we look at the stereotypes of Black people, are good at sports and music. That's movement and creativity. And they have a great sense of hearing. That's where the musicality comes in as well, because of Vata. And they are, Vata genetic types, but they're also prone more to Vata diseases like mental health issues, nervous system issues, addiction. And those are the diseases that are, quite widespread in Black populations. And then we have Caucasians, white people that are genetic Pitta types. They have developed in northern climates where there's not so much light and sun, so their skin has evolved to be more sensitive to light. They have light skin and light hair and maybe freckles or burn easily. They can digest proteins well because they had to survive more on, meat. And they stereotypically, they are good at intellectual achievements like science and philosophy, but they are also prone to stress and heart disease. And you can see that in all the populations in, Europe, America. And Asian people, then the Kapha types, the genetic Kapha types, they have a higher water content, and that shows in their, incredibly smooth-looking hair and skin and youthful looks. And stereotypically, they're very gentle, they're polite, they're good at the healing arts and social interactions. And although they don't take a lot of food, and they can't digest dairy very well, or high amounts of fat, and they're prone more to Kapha diseases like, for example, diabetes. And of course, this is highly, generalized now, but I'm speaking only about the genetics, the prakriti now, because of course we are all, if we go back long enough, we're all mixed races, mixed genetics. And even within one race, there are subtypes of the doshas. It's like fractals that are emerging new cycles and again all the time. And even though we might be all a little bit more Pitta during adulthood, especially maybe as a Caucasian genetic Pitta, we still have different inherited traits. So I, for example, am Caucasian, and I do have a certain amount of Pitta, but I am not a pure Pitta, and I have a lot of Kapha and Vata as well. And in comparison to the people in my area, I do have more Kapha maybe than the average. So that's something to look at as well, psychologically as well, because, we can really see a lot of traits if we look at people, at humanity, at societies through an Ayurvedic perspective. Also gender, women in general, for example, have more Kapha than men. And even as an adult within a certain society, my individual nature may not be, for example, suited to every job that is coming my way, even if it's, tradition in your family. If you were born into a family of architects, for example, but you're very much a Vata dominant You may be maybe more rebellious or creative, and you may need to break away from, family traditions. And, the point is that we are all different, and we need to respect that individuality in us as well as in others. And that's the big point, because, I always thought that if we learned to respect that there are more than our own truth valid in the world, we could really live, happily ever after without any war or conflict that is usually only based on not respecting, not accepting different kinds of truth. So looking at each other from an Ayurvedic perspective gives us a lot of hope, I think, and it helps us to be able to be more compassionate and respectful to others. But I do wanted to talk about a very special phase of life, and that's, the last phase of our life that happens after menopause, because this is very important, and yet it's very undervalued phase in our life. Most women associate menopause with all sorts of negative things, like the loss of our youthful looks, the decline of our fitness levels, hot flashes, mood swings, insomnia, the rise of all sorts of physical and mental discomforts, often the loss of our marriage or long-term relationship. How many marriages, long-term relationships break up around that time? The loss of our children, who at this stage are usually grown up and have moved the house or are just about to move the house. And the general feeling often of uselessness, of just being unwanted and discarded, because we have lost our identity during the Pitta phase of our lives, and that's for men and women. It's just that women have this very amazing inbuilt mechanism. It's like a self-cleaning mechanism, a cycle that men in that way don't have. Men have their own cycles, but this is particular to women, that during all of our adult lives, at our menstruation time, once a month, we would really clean ourselves out physically, of course, but also emotionally. We would, when we get irritated or sad or angry for apparently no reason, that there's always a reason. And that reason is that there was something at some stage that we haven't quite dealt with, that is stuck in our unconscious mind, and it needs to get out. And this is our chance to deal with it. Our unconscious mind presents us with these moments, and it's like saying to us, here you go, remember you have this issue to deal with, or that. And this is our chance to deal with it. So let me tell you about this phase of life from the Ayurvedic perspective a little bit, because Ayurvedically speaking, this last phase of our lives, it's the Vata phase. It's the phase of Vata, of freedom, of movement, of creativity, and most of all of liberation from any dependencies. It's the phase where we no longer have the need to look amazing, to perform well, to be responsible for our children and for all sorts of things. That was the Pitta phase. Now we're going into the Vata phase of life. It's the phase of wisdom, because at this age we have so much life experience, so much wisdom. We may not realize it, but we really do, all of us. We are the elders. And, of course, there is an initiation into this higher level of being human, especially as women, like I said, because of this self-cleaning mechanism that usually happens once a month. But during menopause, it happens magnified. It happens with a bang. First, we have to undergo all of these hardships, just like we did when we were teenagers, when we went through our first big transition. And now Pitta is rising again. It's rising really high, the higher maybe even, because we're already coming from a Pitta phase. We had a lot, our life was already longer, our experiences were more, so our potential trauma was also more, our potential unfinished businesses, unfinished emotions were also potentially more. So the difficulties are potentially more as well. And, this fire, this pitta fire, the tongues of this fire are rising very high. And it's like sometimes feels like it's engulfing us completely. And we might feel extremely emotional. We might feel extremely angry or sad or fearful, depending on our dosha. And our mind represents us with all of this, unfinished business that might be there. Maybe we're feeling unworthy, but now we have the opportunity to sort that out. But to be reminded to these feelings of unworthiness that we might have had throughout our life, now we really feel unworthy. Maybe we have suppressed anger. Well, now it really is coming out. Maybe we have any hidden unresolved traumas. Well, now is the time to meet your demons, because now we really have the chance to fight them, to clear out that sacred space of the unconscious mind, because now is the time for it. Now is a transition time. And this rising pitta, the fire of transformation, is actually helping us for that, to achieve that. And what's also really important to understand, I think, about this time, about this last phase of our life, there is nobody more important than us right now. This is our time to shine, because, this is our time to free ourselves from these demons that we might still carry in us, from our unconscious conditioning, so we actually can become the wise men and women that we really are. And now is the time to, if we need to, we have to take up therapy. Now we can. Maybe we want to write a book. Maybe we want to write our biography, eliminate. This is the phase of elimination, when childhood was the phase of taking in nutrients in this big, soul process of digestion. And adulthood was the phase of transformation. Then now is the time of elimination. We need to let go. We need to eliminate. And we do that, by expressing things creatively as well. So why is it that so many women over the age of 50 are all of a sudden taking up creative, classes, painting, drawing classes? They're writing a biography, and this is great. This is important. It's not just, some way to pass the time until death, but it is actually really important. Because now we are given a very sacred time. We are given a time from now until we finally have to leave this world. We have time to let go. We can slowly let go. We don't have to go all of a sudden when we die, but we can now start to learn how to let go. And this is really important. And because in our society, we have such a fear of death that we try to ignore these things, and we try not to think about letting go at all. But in fact, we have to. And if we start now, we start slowly. We let go of first our own expectations. We let go of all these, the anger that we might still carry, all these unfinished emotions. And, we do this in whatever way we need to. And we begin then to understand that whatever we learn in this life, and I mean really learn on a soul level, not on, academically, whatever we learn, we take into the next one. So it does make sense to, learn important things in life. So we should make the most of it now, use up every minute of what we have left. And in this phase, we really, we do learn to let go. We experience the liberating feeling of letting go of everything we usually like to hold on to. We like to hold on, to, for example, our fear of aging is a big one, especially as women. Especially as women, we are so afraid often of losing our youth and our beauty, because that was our identity. But in my experience, beauty is an internal state of being. And I remember phases where I felt beautiful, really beautiful, and I felt phases where I felt really ugly. And both did not have anything to do with any objective reality, but only with a subjective feeling. Because beauty comes from inside. Everyone who is healthy and happy, deeply happy inside, is naturally beautiful. And there is no other beauty. We can do whatever, we can look after ourselves. But if that leads, if caring for ourselves, putting on makeup, if that leads to a greater happiness in us, then it will make us more beautiful. But if it's only covering something up, then it will never make us more beautiful. So, it's all about this inner state. And menopause, with all its sufferings and, pain, it is again a phase of transformation. This caterpillar again is dissolving into a mush. All of our identities are dissolving, and they are dissolving all the way through. And then we will spread our wings again and turn into a butterfly. We just have to trust that process, I think. We have to trust that every transformation results in a new butterfly. And the more we can let go and look after our own inner health and happiness, the better. As older women, we are the elders of society. We really are the wise women. And it's up to us to give ourselves the respect for that. Because if we don't respect ourselves for that, then others won't either. We cannot expect the younger generation to have our wisdom. So we really cannot, move it up to them, make it up to them to make it right or to respect us or the elders. Because they don't have that experience that we do. For example, in the yoga community, there are so many beautiful young women teaching absolutely beautiful asana classes, physical yoga classes, which are really beautiful. And at the same time, there's a lot of complaining around that yoga is losing its inner, deeper philosophical value, and is more and more focusing just on the physical asana classes. But if we, as the elders, don't step up and teach it, then it won't be taught, because we cannot complain about yoga becoming a superficial Instagram model domain if we don't step up and teach the deeper value of it, because that is up to us. It's not up to the younger generation, but up to us. And it is up to us to show the world a better way as well, because we are the elders. And in my experience, menopause, and I'm only at the beginning of it, is really an adventure. It's a teacher in its own right. It's very difficult, but it's extremely rewarding. That's what I found so far. And according to Jyotish, to Vedic astrology, it's another interesting thing. The mind only matures when it is when its last aspect has matured, and that happens around at the age of 48 or 49 years. So only then have we really matured in our mind mentally. And for most of us, that coincides with the beginning of menopause. And that's the beginning of the potentially most spiritually rewarding time of our lives. And yes, it's a tamasic time. It's a time where we begin to deteriorate physically, but that in itself is a teacher of letting go. And tamas is the energy of Shiva, the destroyer, the most powerful of all the Hindu gods, which are, archetypes for natural forces. And Shiva also symbolizes meditation and yoga. And so we have to, if we, want to really understand these deeper meanings of life, we have to give ourselves into that process of letting go. And we need to start, as soon as we become aware of it. So with this episode, I'm coming to the end now, but with this episode, I really hope to inspire and encourage anyone in this phase or over 50, especially women, but all people, to really embrace this phase and love the process of letting go, because I absolutely believe that, the more we can let go, the happier we get. And also, I want at this stage, of course, to offer you my help as well. I have a program called Dare to Shine, where I help you through any process of transformation. But as it's turned out, it has particularly helped women through their menopause, through their menopausal transformation, because usually something big is happening in this time. And so at this stage, I really would like to encourage you to look up my website, www.sandrahayes.eu, and look at the Dare to Shine program. There is a PDF file to download with the details on it, and maybe if you're interested, contact me and we can have a talk about it. You will get the discount that everybody gets from the podcast, of course, as well. Or if you want to just book a session or a couple of sessions of Vedic counseling with me, or Vedic astrology, or focusing on your health through Ayurveda. Do contact me, and also contact me if you just have any comments or questions. I'd be very happy to hear from you. Thank you so much, and bye for now. You were listening to a podcast on radical self-love, an Ayurvedic perspective of body and mind, by Sandra Hayes and the Little School of Happiness. For more information and offers, go to www.sandrahayes.eu.